Got us just in time. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's time for our monthly meeting here. We have a full quorum, we have a quorum. We have a quorum, not a, yeah, it's not a full, Tony's still not here, but I mean. Was Tony in?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we have everybody here then, huh? Yeah, okay. So Tony is here too, so it looks like we have a full committee here too. That's nice. So we will go ahead and open tonight's meeting and I think begin with a roll call. Go over here to the agenda here. Beginning with our roll call, I'll start out there in Zoom land. Tony Moronis.
Present.
All right. And then we also have Janet Hall.
Present.
Ron Evans.
Present.
Emily Schofield.
Present.
And Denny Nielsen.
Present.
And myself, Tim Kirsch. And we also have with us from the COG, Desiree, and we have Laura Conroy out there in Zoom land with us as well. So again, thank you everyone that is here and in our meeting today from the Zoom world. I guess we'll begin with asking everybody here if they have any potential conflicts of interest. If nobody has any, but one comes up later in the meeting, then please announce it at that time. Any announcements that anybody might have for announcements? If nothing, then we'll move on to public comment. I don't know if there's anybody out there in Zoom from the public world that would like to comment. Please raise your hand if there is. So no public comment. So we're gonna dive right into old business. We have consent agenda is gonna be just looks like the approval of the September 3rd regular board meeting and minutes. Anybody have any questions on that or comment on that?
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Ron Evans for our treasurer report.
Okay, during the month of September, we had the COG billing for $3,801. We had Emily Schofield, $1,081.77 for business expenses. The state of Oregon for $150 for report and move audit. And single point fees of $17.95 for the month. Leaving us with a grand total of $40,720 in our account. That's it for the month of September. We do need to look at our budget and come up with some manipulations to get cash in different places.
Right, so
We will.
I know that, so Ron is gonna meet with Laura later this month and come up with some potential budget amendments to be on our next agenda, it sounds like.
We'll have a resolution for
Okay,
that. That's it.
very good, thank you. Do we need to have that approved or?
Just would like to know if we need to make an amendment to our, I can speak English, to, change the $500 contribution for Emily's trip to the, more than 1,000 that it is.
So there was a deposit from the city of
Oh, yeah,
Gates.
sorry, I missed that. Gates made a deposit of $500. They're
577. But it's
581.77.
all here, so that's why I was wondering if we need, I'm not questioning the expense.
Yeah,
I'm just
no.
questioning If
Okay.
this
Good
shows
question.
the whole thing came out of here, out of our budget, so
Okay.
my question is,
I could split that and have Gates' contribution and,
I just wanna make sure that we don't have any reason for an auditor or anybody else.
it's up here,
Okay,
it's where it's listed, this is. the one.
okay, that's fine, I just was,
Okay,
I don't want us to get caught
Yeah,
with
so
that.
it's.
I'm glad you
I'm
brought that
dealing
up.
with auditors right now, I don't like them with budget stuff,
Yeah,
they're
that's,
jerks.
that's why I had that problem with City Gates, that's what
Oh, yeah.
they said, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. I just was looking at that to that and
Okay.
just wanted
So
clean
it's
as
counted.
peaches. I just want it clean as peaches. That's all I want.
Nope, looks good on the
Thank you.
ledger there, so,
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
very
I'll be
nice,
quiet.
Sue.
Good
We
job.
know to have a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
So second move.
Been moved and seconded to approve the treasury report. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Motion carried. Then now we're gonna turn it over to our, staff report for Laura Conroy. Laura,
Sure, and I might want to go back just a minute, now that you've approved the treasurer's report and maybe address what Counselor Zion Hall might be raising, which is that if the NSSA received funds from the city of Gates, which then you use to reimburse Emily, there may be a question about whether you need to take action as a board to approve the receipt of that and then appropriate it. I will follow up with our finance director and see if you need to do that. It sounds like the accounting side of it is all in order, but whether you need to take action as a board beyond what you just did, I'll just double check on that. Because I don't know the answer. So,
Sure.
and we'll make sure if you do need to take action, I'll work with Ron to make sure you get that in front of you. So thank you, Janet, though, for flagging that. Just procedurally, the accounting, what the treasurers did may be all right, but from budget law perspective, we may need to do something there, but I'll work through that. Okay, so jumping into the staff report. Hello, everyone from Klamath Falls, Oregon. The statewide Oregon Economic Development Association conference is here. This is a gathering of Business Oregon reps and cities and special districts from around the state, looking to fund and develop their communities just like all of you are. So this is an opportunity to just really talk and compare ideas and notes about how to fund things. They're all very interested in, of course, the fact that this body received, or in your communities received $50 million for construction. Not all, actually, most cities and communities are not that fortunate to have that investment. And so, of course, my focus now is looking to help figure out how to fund, help, and assist with O&M. So I have my ears and eyes open for those types of strategies. So thank you for letting me join you via Zoom from the Running Y in Klamath Falls, Oregon. And this trip is not funded by the NSSA. This trip is funded by a grant, Economic Development Administration grant that the COG holds. So just so you know why we're not doing that with this body. So let's see, the majority of what your COG staff was doing in August is working in collaboration with the county to gather and prepare comment on the petition to amend the Three Basin Rule. As previously mentioned in other previous month staff reports, COG has a really good relationship with the Confederated Tribe. COG has a really good, of Grand Ronde. COG has a very good relationship with the city of Salem. And so in kind of partnership with Marion County Public Works, which has done an excellent job on the technical side, working with the tribes and with the city of Salem's Public Works staff and policymakers. It's been a really great partnership. And what it has resulted in is that both of those bodies have prepared and submitted what I would characterize as positive letters of support for the petition. They were kind enough to provide COG with copies of their comments. And of course, they'll be made available by DEQ through DEQ's processes. But my review of them, assuming they were consistent with what they actually submitted, which I have no reason to believe they weren't, they were very favorable. And so I will let Mary speak to any process questions you have about rulemaking or EQC, because that is DEQ's process. But I can say that was the bulk of the work we did. We also, and I did speak with the treasurer about this, we also prepared our own comment in support of the petition. And I did reach out to Cable Houston for some of the finer legal points and legal arguments. And so the copy of our comments is attached to my staff report, and you can read through those. Tim signed those on behalf of NSSA. Timing wise, we didn't have time to bring those to the full board. It was appropriate for board chair to sign on behalf of the NSSA. And the reason we didn't have time is because just due to the administrative timelines, the public comment period closed at 5 o'clock on Sunday last night. And so you weren't going to meet between when they were due and when we needed to submit them. Of course, if the EQC does decide to initiate rulemaking, there will be a full public process, or there may be a full public process. Again, we'll let Mary speak to that. And there will be more opportunity for more robust involvement by the entire board. So that is the majority of what we worked on your behalf, and I'm happy to take any questions about that.
Questions, anybody out there in Zoom land have any questions for Laura? I see none here. I don't see any questions.
Is there, any
there's one.
timeline on the potential approval of the changes to the 3-basin rule?
Can you speak to the owl so that I can pick up your voice?
I tried to move it closer.
Is there any timeline at all to the proposed approval or assume it's approval of the change to the 3-basin rule?
Mary, do you want to take that question?
Yeah.
I think it was a
Yeah.
process question.
So process question is, we finished comment period yesterday. We have 90 days from when we got the revised petition from Marion County. So that puts us basically the end of November, and the EQC meeting, because they have to make a decision, is going to be either November 20 or 21st. And at that meeting is when they have 3 options for us, or we're going to offer 3 options. The 3 options they have is deny, and nothing, it just goes away. And Marion County can repetition later, but it's outright denial. Denial, but they direct DEQ to do something, go do a report, go evaluate this, something. And then the third option is approval, and it likely won't be an all-out approval in the sense of we have to go to rule writing. So it could be approval with some changes and go to rule writing, because you have to have it changed before DEQ can actually issue permits. So deny with some action, and then approve with some action is basically our 3 options. And we haven't picked the options. We're just preparing a report based on the comments and our analysis, the staff analysis. And that'll go to the commission. You'll get a heads up about what the options are, because we'll have to produce slides. So they'll be released prior to the meeting, so you'll have an idea. There is no public process at the EQC meeting. Brian Nicholas did approach the commission last week when we had our commission meeting and spoke on behalf of the project. So that was noted. So commissioners got to hear that. I mean, it was only a limited couple minutes, but it was better than nothing. And it's not that we don't want Marion County or NISA to speak. It's just not allowed under the petition rules. It's kind of weird. I don't understand why that's true, but it is true. So it was nice of Brian to advocate for you, at least in the only opportunity that's available prior to the decision in November. So I'm going to stop. There was a lot of words, and see if there's more questions.
Thank you.
I'll add just something in here about timeline. NSSA's attorneys and I pondered whether the DEQ could initiate permanent rulemaking at the same time as they could initiate emergency rulemaking. And our read was that may be a possibility. And so in the comments that we submitted, and I'm not going to put Mary on the spot here because it's
No.
maybe not hers to say whether she agrees or not. But in our comments that we submitted, we urged the EQC to initiate both processes. So your permanent rulemaking, we've sort of heard in different spaces, can take up to 12 months. Your emergency rulemaking process can possibly, our attorneys read, be much faster. And our attorneys read, possibly the EQC could run tool processes. So so that's what was included in our comment. And if we have more internal discussion about what your council's advice is, we'll take that into executive session rather than put Mary on the spot here, because I'm not going to ask her to speak to that.
Oh, we can't, we're pre-decisional, so it's the way
Yep.
it is.
Right, but on process, like if they said, well, would you initiate emergency or permanent? I don't know that you even have a thought around that yet, so,
No.
or can, so, but I wanted this group to know that we sort of, there was a nuance in that in the comment that we submitted. So we'll be following up on that, well, or we'll all find together.
So here's the rundown of the comments, just in general for everybody. We haven't released them yet. But anyway, there's 24 comments that were in complete favor in the sense of it changed the rule, accept it. There were 5 that we call qualified yeses. It was like yes and go do something, or yes and look at this. There were 8 outright no's for various reasons. One of them did come from about 6 environmental groups, and they had their attorney just give us 8 to 10 pages of information. And then we had 2 that were calling neutral. One was from EPA that was, they were just clarifying language in the petition. They were they didn't like how the Maui decision was referenced. Oh, well, okay. So it wasn't anything like, they were neutral. They really don't have as far as we can tell, a role to play. It's a state rule, not a federal rule that's in play here. And then one actually came from Ken Woodworth, and I was surprised he didn't actually say he was for it. He just gave me history, and I was like, I know he's for it, but I'm like, why didn't you not put in your thing that you were for it? But he got to be neutral just because he didn't say anything for it. I thought that was odd. I think I don't know what he thought, but anyway, that's fine. He still counts. He's just put him in the neutral section. So anyway, there's 39 comments total that we accounted for. So I don't know if that's helpful. If you want to just generally know what was in the comments, I can do that tonight, or you can wait till that they're bundled up and released.
Is there any action that we could take with that information, Mary, at this point?
No, I mean, other than just know what people thought. Yeah.
One question,
Go ahead.
is there anything that you feel looking through them is, and I'm not gonna compromise you as far as your integrity, your roles or anything, but is there anything in there you think is damaging enough we need to worry about?
I guess how I would phrase this, it's when you have a rule that's this old, 70, it was put in the 70s, modified in 96, people have attachment to it, I would say. And so some of the people that wrote were like, they had concerns that there wasn't enough study done, that kind of thing. I talked to the North Santiam Watershed Council, and what was interesting from their perspective is that the river is still recovering. We don't even know what the new norm is for the North Santiam River from the fires. And so, for example, in Detroit, there was the algae bloom for Detroit was huge, massive, and it's most likely because of all the runoff that's coming, all the organics. And so, for their perspective is there's not enough information to be modifying the rule and probably adding somewhat of a load to the river. So, so there's things like that. So they're very thoughtful about what their concerns were. There was no unreasonableness to what they were concerned about. It's just, you know, balancing out, you know, their concerns versus, you know, a good treatment system, what's going on with economic development and things like that. So it was pretty, I thought it was balanced, you know. You might say, well, that's against it, but they were just trying to give feedback as to, for them, it was too premature, for example.
Mary, what is the DEQ's process for releasing comment if folks want to read for themselves?
You know, we are swamped right now because I have this deadline, so I could maybe deal with that next week and ask, because we were supposed to get an information request and there's only 39 comments. So I just hope I can just bundle them up and send them to you, Laura, and you could put them on the webpage. But I just have to ask because, you know, but I don't have time because I got to do this stuff for that report this week. So
Is it helpful if we submit a public records request or no?
it is actually just
Okay.
because the uppers like that better, but you
You
know,
bet.
I didn't want to make you hassle do that because I was like, but it is helpful for them to have that. So
Sure. I just realized it's maybe putting you, thank you for offering to summarize. It may be difficult to summarize 39 comments. I was like, well, let's just get them from you. All right. Well, I'll submit a public records
I think
request.
I gave you the gist of kind of where comments were, you know, just kind of where the comments were coming from. So
Thank you, Mary.
are there any other questions from the board?
Well,
I
and
don't
to,
see.
okay.
Wait a minute, I do have one.
Chairman, Mary, this is Denny Nielsen. I'm curious if everything went in favor of the request. What is the earliest that we could actually use the amended rule to our favor and begin to work through various permitting processes?
That's challenging to say, Denny. I mean, if they accept the petition, or we recommend and the commission accepts the petition as is, you know, maybe 6 months. There's some things with, I'm just being honest, right? I can't say what, but there's some things in the petition that, you know, we're going to ask to have changed. I mean, it doesn't work, and that's fine. It's okay to have a few things that, you know, you guys don't know how to write. I mean, you did the best you can, but you know, just rule writing is hard. So we probably will say, you know, hey, if they wanted to go forward, that we need to tweak some things. So I don't know if that's going to make it take longer or not. It just kind of depends on, you know, what the commission wants. I mean, we will make it very clear with your timeline. Certainly Brian Nicholas wrote a response to comments. I mean, he put a comment letter in there talking about the timeline. So, you know, we can certainly reference that and will of the importance of the timeliness of that. I just don't know what they're going to do about going forward or not. So, but you know, 6 months to a year is kind of what you could count on. So hope that gives you some timeline.
Okay,
So let's compartmentalize the question a little bit. How long does rulemaking take?
Oh, okay. So I guess there's two questions. One is, once we get the green light, how long will it take DEQ to write a permit? And I've been asked, can DEQ do writing and do a permit at the same time? I have pushed that up to upper management to see what they would say. I've planted the seed because that would be very helpful if those things can happen. I don't know what they're going to do with it. It's not my decision, but I have promoted that to upper management, like, hey, Marion County is going to come in if this is successful and ask to start, you know, give us an application and sort of have everything come at the end. I don't know if that's kind of unusual, but these are unusual circumstances too. But yeah, so ideally, if there wasn't such a rush, you would do rule writing first. And then when that's done, then you'd put in an application after that. So, and this is a complicated permit for us to write an NPD. We don't have a lot of examples. And Marion County really wasn't analyzing and thinking about an NPDES permit when we were doing all the work. So there could be some more things that they would have to do that we hadn't accounted for because we weren't really focusing on the NPDES permit. So, you know, I would say a year and a half is what we're looking at, and that'd be fast. I mean, between the two processes, I would say. But that's just a guess, without having a, you know, us actually having an application in our hand and start working on it. So I know that's tight. It's so tight, at this stage. So we get it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions for Mary? If not, Laura, or we're still actually on your report. Are you finished up then with yours?
I am. Thank you, Chair.
You are, okay, then we will move on to our county update from Chris Einmo.
All right. Evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Yeah, so the county's efforts in the kind of last couple months have really many ways mirrored what Laura described for COG's efforts. There was a lot of outreach surrounding that petition because it's a very complex topic that we're, trying to convey to different utilities with different interests, different groups, different government agencies, and the general public. So there's a lot that goes into informing people what we're doing, so they're not just kind of caught off guard when they get a request for a comment. One of those things, as Laura mentioned, is that we put together a presentation for the Grand Ronde tribes, and then they subsequently came out and viewed the proposed site with some of their staff, and we're very grateful for that. After this, they were ostensibly briefed the tribal council because we saw the tribal council's comments. So we were very grateful for that opportunity and for COG for facilitating that. We also did a kind of technical webinar for utility staff at the 5 utility areas that are, impacted by those 3 river basins. When I say impacted, as in those are the downstream water users from those rivers. And so we asked for their, the staff who generally deal with the treatment plants and the capital projects to kind of listen to a little bit more about what our project is and why it's necessitated this petition for rule change and how it fits, and then how that proposed rule language can fit into the other basins as well. And so we had pretty good attendance from that. I think it was actually City of Salem joined us in helping to present based on all the collaboration we've had to date. And then we had, if I recall, I think it was Springfield and eWeb, which is Eugene. We had some Clackamas providers there as well. So, that was I think we had a really good discussion coming out of that. And so the county had done a fair amount of outreach, and we got a lot of feedback through this process. Even after we submitted the petition, we had more questions from people who had read it, and so we submitted a follow-up comment on our own petition, kind of describing some of those things. One of those was the time frame, as Mary described. Right now we're looking at best a very optimistic 18 months. And we're at the point now where we're need to design, need to start buying equipment. So the timelines really are critical, especially when we keep in mind those ARPA deadlines to expend that 50 million by December 2026. It's quite a challenge. So we wanted to make clear all those timelines as part of that, and asking the DEQ what they can do to help us get to a rapid solution. And for that, we're grateful that DEQ is being a partner in this to help us think of unconventional solutions, because as Mary said, this is an unusual situation, to be sure. Meanwhile, the progress on the project continues as it must. And so we've received a 50% design submittal from Keller on the Mill City and Gates treatment plant. So we're in the process of review on that now, and then that'll be sent along with a preliminary engineering report to the DEQ so that they can kind of keep up to date with what's happening in the design. The 50% is where we really start to get down to what's this plant going to look like? How do all the pieces fit together? How do we start sizing the treatment systems? Getting a sense of things like the electrical loadings and the mechanical needs so that we can start ordering parts to build it. After that, subsequent design milestones will be really tweaking and altering it, but trying to fit it around a central core of treatment that's needs to be under order and in fabrication, because some of these treatment systems have a pretty long lead time to them, can be 12 months or more. So all that's kind of been happening at the same time. And that's, really some of the unique challenges of this project is getting all these pieces together and to make it fit within these very, very aggressive deadlines. So that report will be compiled along with the design and then some supporting calcs, and we'll be submitting that. Keller's continuing to work on the design for the collection system and gates. I know the last time we met, Peter Olson came in and presented kind of a new layout that would show how we can eliminate some of those grinder pumps so that we just have more centralized lift stations. Like any design, there will be trade-offs. One of those trade-offs is just there's kind of more easement and lot line crossings involved. So we're still working through the design on there, but what you saw before was an early conceptual design. And now Keller is actually getting into the nuts and bolts of how to make that work from an engineering standpoint, figuring things out like what depths are the sewers, where do we set the lift stations with that revised design. In the upper basin, we're continuing with the commercial septic permitting as kind of the big focus of this project team. So we've had some grant agreements go out already. In fact, we will be having our first grant agreement that exceeds $100,000 going through the Board of Commissioners. That's just our cutoff. Anything above 100,000 goes to the board. So we're starting to get those through. And we had a very good meeting up in Detroit about permitting. So Denny, thank you for facilitating that. And Mary, thank you for coming up. The DEQ staff met with Detroit and we worked through, some solutions to permitting through the WPCF process. Now that our consultant is back in Oregon and engaged, we're starting to see the pieces come together for those permits so that we can get them to the finish line. We're also planning on doing some more site evaluations, which means, digging test pits up in Detroit. Hoping to get those out this month so that we can start just getting more permits in the queue, and then we'll be able to write grant agreements. And that would be some of the properties that are more around the downtown corridor, as well as the ones along 22. We have to make sure we finish the NEPA clearance before we start digging into the ODOT right away. So it may not be in the next couple of weeks, hoping we can get it through quickly. But then we want to get test pits in that area so that we can start designing around that space. And then we can actually propose those easement layouts to ODOT so we can formally get the easements. And so that's kind of the last month in a nutshell. I just threw a lot of information out there too. So let me just take a pause for a minute, see if there's any questions.
Chris, I have a question for you. Yeah, when you're talking about along Highway 22, can you be a little more specific about the test pit locations in those areas?
Sure. There's a small frontage that's basically kind of excess right of way that ODOT has no plans to use. And it's in Detroit, kind of about a half mile north of Forest Ave and then a quarter mile south, more or less. And so that area, it's kind of where as you're going in and it's excavated. It was excavated recently. I think maybe a couple months ago. There was not in that area, but one of the lots next to it had kind of a fill pile, and that's where there's right now a couple of food trucks on the adjacent lots, and then there's the old city hall, and then back where Cedars used to be. So it's that area that's between there and the road, and it just looks like a grassy area right now. And so all that area, it is an ODOT's right of way, but their long-term plans don't show any need to widen there, so it's kind of unused. And they've signaled that we should be able to obtain easements in that area for septic drain fields.
Thank you.
Other questions for Chris? Anybody?
I have a question that's not directly related to your conversation, but to the ARPA funding, Chris. I'm not sure you're the right person to ask.
I'll try my best.
Unfortunately, with the ARPA deadlines coming up so quickly, do you know what kind of an agreement the county has for the ARPA funds? Are you all recipients, a sub-recipient, or are you a grantee, sub-grantee, an IAA, IGA? Learning all the different terms and all the different. Yeah.
It's complex. So we're a sub-recipient. All that funding came through a grant from Business Oregon.
Okay, so I think that answers my question, because that gives us, it gives us more contracting freedom. If I understand correctly, so thank you.
And I'm not sure that's accurate, because it came from the legislators through Business Oregon, and Business Oregon has a contract with the county, so I'm not sure how much flexibility. If we need Arthur to come, he's probably the best. He's not here tonight, but he's probably the best one. If you want more information from at least Business Oregon perspective about that contract, we certainly can ask him to come and talk about it. So there is complicated.
Yeah.
Curious, because they're changing our recipient type in order for us to be able to reallocate funding that we're getting back. To keep it moving, and that's why I was wondering, because it gives us more flexibility to get the money back out to a similar contractor if we have to. So if something happens and the money comes back, it's all legal semantics with DAS.
So I agree. It's
Okay,
definitely,
yes.
yeah, it is complex. And I want to say, I agree with Mary that it may not necessarily offer us more flexibility just in our category. You know, we're not the direct recipient from the treasury of that funds. It's gone through the state legislature and through Business Oregon, but we don't have quite the same flexibility as, say, a grantee, where grantees are not like necessarily subject to a lot of the federal funding requirements. We generally are subject to the same requirements as the principal recipient. I hope that kind of clarifies. So Mary, to your point, yeah, it doesn't give us a ton of flexibility with regard to ARPA. But it's a little different than functioning as the direct recipient, which the county is on a different project. It gets really complicated.
Yeah, but what the good news is because they're a sub-grantee, we don't have to do an obligation in December of 2024, because there is that part of the rule. So that's nice. So we don't have to they don't have to worry about that, because that's already been taken care of. Now it's if there could be an extension into December of 2026. And so far, none of the federal delegation has been able to open up that. But it would be very nice if cut even a couple more years, but you know, it is what it is.
That would be super, and I know that DAS is checking into that. I know the lead manager for the program, and she's trying, because it's been difficult to contract out and get projects moving that fast. So you answered my question, so perfect, thank you.
All right.
Yep. We do keep asking for that extension, but we certainly are not counting on it.
Is that doing it for you, Chris, or you got any more you'd like to add, or does anybody have any more questions for Chris?
If no further questions, turn it back to you.
Thank you for your update, sir. And then also under our agenda, actually, we have DEQ, I know Mary's already given us a lot of information tonight. Is there anything you'd like to add for a update from DEQ, Mary?
Just on the septic program in Detroit, just so everybody knows, we haven't received any application. And we did write a fact sheet to try to help people understand when Marion County permits things versus DEQ. And in most cases, Marion County sanitarian can permit it. It gets a little tricky when it has to have pre-treatment. And that's more like for restaurants or what we call high strength. So anyway, we have a fact sheet. I don't know, Laura, if you put it up on the webpage, but it helps walk people through just how these things are permitted in general, but every site is unique. And so it's kind of a case by case situation, depending on how many toilets they have, and if they have a restaurant or some other high strength thing makes a difference as to which agency, if you will, if it's Marion County sanitarian or if it's a DEQ sanitarian that does the work. So
Mary, I'm happy to put a link on our website to the fact sheet. I don't want to post DEQ's content on the NSSA website just because if it changes and I don't know about it, it's wrong, so, but if you have it someplace on your website, I'm happy to link to it. So we can take care of that offline though. It's a good idea.
Yeah. It's because I think people are curious and, we want them to have all the information they need about that. So,
yeah.
And then I talked about the petition. We did get the pre-design from Keller, and we're also working through comments on the facility plan because that hasn't been approved either, but we're just doing everything in parallel, so it's fine. So anyway, we'll be meeting with Keller and the county on our comments. So working diligent on that. I think that's all I got. Are there any other questions for me or DEQ in general?
Not seeing any, so
Okay.
unless anybody out there in Zoom land has some, but if not, then we'll move right along. It looks like, and you say Arthur's not with us tonight, so is there nothing from Business Oregon then, I presume? And we have a spot here for Regional Solutions Coordinator. Is somebody there in representation of that? Nobody?
Nobody? No. I mean, I can give Beth information, but she didn't relay anything to me, so
Sure.
No updates.
Well, that pretty much concludes what's on our agenda for tonight. I don't know if there's anybody out there else that's in the Zoom meeting that would like to have comment on anything. I'll open it up for comments one more time. I don't know, I can't see who all's out there right now. So if anybody has any further comment, there's your opportunity to speak to the board. And if there's nothing there, then we're gonna have to go ahead.
Wait a minute, Chair. Tony, do you have something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, and first of all, I apologize. Mondays have been very tough, and we've had some great news in our family and things that have kept me away. But I just want to make sure, and I know Laura's been great in working with our Idanha city manager when it comes to just including some of the meetings that are happening in Detroit for the business community, like the one that Denny had organized, just to make sure that funnels through and that information gets pushed up to the city of Idanha on the off chance that somebody might like to attend. And you may have already done it, Laura, so if you have, thank you very much, or Denny, but just keep us included in that.
So Tony, if you want us to come up to Idanha and talk septic, just let me know and we can arrange for that if there's a need. So, just reach out to Laura and then she knows how to, or reach out to me and we can make that happen. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I don't want to waste anybody's time. So if we can piggyback on something that you're already doing in Detroit, it's 4 miles down the highway. So that's helpful. But thank you for the offer. And yeah.
So Tony, I want to be clear, because I want to make sure I get you the information you're asking for. The meeting that Beth Witowski set up, when Denny set up, was for Detroit commercial property owners only, I think. And I'm happy to share that with you. Is your, but I just want to make, are you asking for information for IDANA property owners or just to be able to see what Detroit's doing?
No, I didn't hear that it was for Detroit property owners only in the comments that were made earlier. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought that up. I just heard there was a meeting that happened in regards to the Detroit business septic system. So any of those things, if it's not just a specific to the business owners, we want to still at least put that out and put it on the IDANA website.
So we developed 2 fact sheets related to septic for commercial and just in general. So I could have Sean send it to your city recorder. Would that be helpful?
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
But Chris Einmo, is there funding available for that in IDANA?
No, that, oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure
No,
we're clear.
that's not what I was after. It was more just
Okay.
our communities have always kind of been
Yeah.
together but separate. If you don't know the dynamic in the Upper Canyon. And so my job is to, when I'm available, try to make sure that everybody in IDANA kind of is up to speed on what's going on, whether they ask or not. And through our city recorder, at least if that, whenever it's a public invitation, if that information's pushed up, which you guys have been really good about, I mean, to this point. I just heard the one meeting, and again, if I'd missed something, I apologize, and I didn't hear that it was just Detroit business owners. So anything other than that, yeah, that's great.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Tony, you bring up a great point, and I don't think we thought about IDANA because of how this meeting was focused, but you would have been welcome. And frankly, we should have thought about inviting you or someone else to be there with us. It would have been a better meeting with your presence.
Appreciate that.
So a note is to include IDANA in any
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
discussions with the business type sewer system or
A lot-
septic system.
Yeah, a lot of our folks, because we have one store in IDANA, go to Detroit for all of their needs or a lot of their needs. So that's, that, I guess that's kind of where it leads to, really.
Yeah, but like you say, even though you're separate communities, it is close knit between the 2 communities. I've known that for years, so that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you guys. And Mary, yeah, I appreciate if you can send me whatever you can, or to the city recorder.
Okay, further comments, questions? This is the opportunity. If not, we're gonna go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting. Want to thank everyone for joining us, obviously, and thank you for all the updates as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.